All right, so now we're at part two. What's that? Well, about half of them concern statutes, laws passed by Congress, and about half concern the Constitution. That's this document. And what this document does, that's usually the more interesting half for the public. What this document does is it sets up a government. It sets up the federal government. And if you ask any of the 9 of us, what really does this do, we'll all answer about the same thing. I think we'll all say what this is really about is it creates institutions that allow us to make decisions democratically. That's basically what it is. I mean, we vote. You want to know what the school is like? Ask the headmistress. But once you're out of here, you will decide by voting, you say, what the city's like, what the town is like, what the country is like. That's the job. I mean, that's your job. That will be the citizen's job. To go and figure out, you don't like what's going on? Good, change it. Oh, I can't change it by myself. Talk to other people. But they don't agree with me. Well, convince them. Let's learn something about the subject. Let's discuss it with them. And what this does is it sets up a system so you can do that. That's what these elections are about. You don't like one person? Vote for the other. He'll win anyway. Well, not necessarily. I mean, go talk to people. Participate. Become involved. You'll see. And the people who thought of that idea, it's changed somewhat over time, but the germ of that idea is what they wrote in here about 200 and some odd years ago. Now, it's a special kind of democracy. It's not just democracy all the time. It has some other things that are pretty important, too. The special kind of democracy is this. You say it in about 4 phrases. It also protects basic human rights. So that if you have a basic right, speech, not to be searched unreasonably by the government, not to have your liberty taken away unreasonably, you'll find all that protected. So it protects certain basic human rights. It insists upon a certain degree of equality, so that people have to be treated with equal respect. It divides power, so no group of government officials can become too powerful. Now you know that, the big division, state, federal. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania has a lot of power, maybe just as much, maybe more over you than the federal government. It divides power. States have some, federal government has some. And within the federal government, it divides power again. So we have the executive, the legislative, the judicial. We have Congress, the president, and the judges. 3 branches. Independent, but they cooperate, but independent. Why? So no single group of people can become too powerful. And it insists upon a rule of law. That's following the rules. Not just arbitrarily grabbing somebody and throwing them in jail. So what do we say? Well, we have to be 5 phrases. Democracy, basic human rights, degree of equality, separation and division of powers, and a rule of law. Now you can say it in under 15 seconds. It's not a single phrase, but it's just a few. And ask me, ask my colleagues, ask people who work with the document, they'll say, yes, that's about what this Constitution does. And what's our job? Applying it. Applying it how? Well, maybe Congress or maybe the states have passed a law and somebody thinks it runs against one of those basic principles. Then we'll try to work out the answer. Does it or doesn't it? You see, what we're doing here is, this is not telling people how to do things, but this is setting boundaries. And we're the boundary patrol. Now, you weren't born at the right time, but if you'd been born when I was born, you would have had the great pleasure of listening to the radio, and they used to have these great dramas on the radio. I remember very much listening to Sky King, King of the Mounties or something. Now, what Sky King used to do, since he was in the Mounties, would he be up in Canada, and he would be patrolling the boundaries. Now, it was very cold, and it was sort of tough, patrolling the boundaries. But that was the job, and I've thought to myself since then, that's what I do. I am patrolling the boundaries. The Supreme Court is part of the boundary patrol. And these are the boundaries. And life there on the boundary, on the frontier in Canada or anywhere else, was not always easy. It was sometimes pretty tough. Is abortion inside the boundary or outside? Is prayer in schools inside or outside? It's pretty tough. Tough. Not even as tough as Sky King. But regardless, that's the job. But people forget all the time, when you read about this in the newspapers, they never remind you of this. That these are boundaries. And in between the boundaries is a vast amount of decision-making, and that decision-making will take place in democratic institutions, and the people who make those democratic decisions are going to be you, your parents, your brothers, sisters, cousins, uncles, aunts, and friends, or those they elect. And that's how they make the decisions. All right, there you have the synopsis of what we do. Now it's getting more interesting, right? And now I'll tell you that, finally, the thing that thrills me the most, I can say it in a sentence, or I can say it in 5 minutes. I think I'll try 5 minutes. I'll give you the sentence first. The thing that thrills me the most, always, is to sit in the courtroom and to see in front of me every kind of person you can imagine. I mean, every race, every religion, every point of view, and my mother used to tell me there is no point of view so crazy there isn't somebody in the country who doesn't hold it. And we lived in San Francisco. Sorry. I grew up in San Francisco. But there we are. But nonetheless, she used to say they all live in Los Angeles, the people with those oddities. But still, the point's there. I see in front of me every single day. I see in front of me people of every point of view imaginable. It's a big country, 300 million people, and those 300 million think a lot of different things. And it's a kind of miracle that they've decided to make their decisions under law and not fighting in the streets. Now I'm going to say 2 minutes more about that miracle. Because what I've been writing about, and what I really would like you to come away from either this talk or what you read with 2 ideas. And the first idea is the one I've said already about 7 times, and it isn't about homework. The idea that I wanted you to come away with is the fact that this document sets up a system for you to participate in the decisions of government. And there are many ways to participate. And you'll all think you're going to. There's one person in this room who thinks he's not going to. Say, sure I will. You can join a school board, library committee, run for office, support somebody's campaign. But what happens is you get involved 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years from now in raising a family, having a job, trying to figure out how you're going to get food on the table, get the meal cooked, you watch your parents with some sympathy, not as much as they deserve, they think, but nonetheless you have some sympathy, and life is a lot to do. And so remembrance to stay involved in the community is much harder than remembering the 3 words that I'm saying now. But anyway, that's what I'm saying. That's one of the things I'd like you to take away. And the other thing I'd like you to take away from this is how difficult it's been to get to the stage where all the people in that room are so diverse who come into my room. It's not just mine and the other 8. It's your room. It's a public room. It's the court. It's the place where the court hears its arguments. How difficult it's been for that to happen in the history of the United States. How long it's taken. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, they set up this Constitution, you know, the founders, 200 and some odd years ago. And they thought it was a great idea that there would be a Supreme Court that would decide when Congress went too far and crossed the boundary. Why? Why a court? Why judges? Why people who weren't elected? Well, they said, we don't want the president to have this power. He's too powerful already. We don't want Congress to have the power. Why not? Well, because a lot of the words in here, so you remember I read you some cruel and unusual punishment? Well, a lot of those words are designed to protect people who are unpopular. A lot of the convicted murderers, for example, are pretty unpopular. And it is tempting to think what I'd like to do is torture them to death. And yet, those words are there, so you, no matter how much you want to torture them to death, can't do it. And there are a lot of people who've been unpopular in our history, have some unpopular ideas. are unpopular for a lot of different reasons. The document's there to protect them. So Hamilton and the others said, Congress is not going to be great at protecting people who are unpopular. We saw this in World War II, where majorities voted into office in Germany, governments that decided to kill 6 million people. Russia, 20 million. I mean, majorities have done bad things in history. So, they have a document. So, we're a little nervous about Congress. Why? They're not bad people, they're good people, but they're experts on popularity. I mean, if they didn't know all about popularity, they wouldn't be in their jobs. So why should a group that really wants to be popular be trusted with the idea of enforcing this when it's unpopular to do so? So we'll give the job to the judges. Now the judges aren't very powerful. They don't have purse, they don't have sword, says Hamilton. But probably they can do that job. But if they're so weak, why would anyone do what they say? And that's what I'm talking about when I talk about the two